Imagine for a moment a postman walking his route on your street. But it's not long before you notice that I am not your regular postman, delivering the mail you might normally expect. You see, I deliver stories, tales of the grim and mysterious in particular. Ghosts and shadows haunt these pages, some inspired by true stories, others entirely from my own mind. And if you decide you're brave enough to see what I've delivered today, well, I warned you.
The rest will be here soon. It was Christmas Eve of 2002. I was headed back home from college for the holidays and had been on the road for about 10 hours. My boyfriend was supposed to come with me originally to help me drive, but at the last minute he got news that his father had fallen down the stairs at their home and broken his leg. I told him not to worry about going home for Christmas with me and that he should be with his family. He told me to call him when I got to my mom's new house, but for a little while I wasn't even sure I would get there. The 1,000-yard stare was setting in pretty good after the first 6 hours. But after about 4 cups of gas station coffee along the way, I was doing a little better, and now the end was finally in sight. My mom had bought a new house over the fall and had already moved in. It was in a totally new neighborhood, and so I knew it would take some time to find it. My mom made it a point to write me a letter every couple of weeks while I was away at school, and I always looked forward to them because she would usually put some photos in there, along with little doodles and other things that made me miss seeing her. Then she would put in either a brightly colored envelope or something a little fancier like parchment paper. She was definitely where I got my creative side from. I told her the last time we spoke to go ahead and put the address to her new house in her next letter. That way I had a permanent copy to take with me on the way, and in her next letter she did just that. However, this letter was a little odd compared to her others. It was just a plain old white envelope with my first name on the front piece of paper. Then it read, "New address," followed by just the address. That was it. No doodles or stickers or anything else written. I simply thought that she must have been in a hurry that day and pushed it out of my mind. Now I was following the map I had, searching for the new house. I had driven to a neighborhood a little farther out of the town and actually had to drive around a few big cornfields to get there. Eventually, I did see the house toward the end of the street. 237 Frostwood Lane. There was no mistaking it. After parking the car on the curb, I looked up and saw a familiar face peeking at me from behind the window. As I opened the back door to gather a few bags, I smiled and waved, and after hesitating for a moment, my mom waved back. "Hi, Mom," I said exactly as I dropped one of my bags to give her a one-armed hug. "Hi, sweetheart," she replied, returning the hug. "How was your trip?" "Long." "Well, I'd imagine so." "Well, where am I sleeping?" My mom smiled. I've been so busy with the move-in that I haven't even thought about it. How about you just throw your bags in the corner over there and we can figure that out after the rest come?" "You mean when Brian shows up?" I then said sarcastically, "Amy won't show up till after Christmas because she saw a butterfly or something." Brian was my older brother. Amy was the youngest and also had a notorious reputation for being late to everything and never having a valid excuse as to why. I put my bags down in the corner and looked up to see my mom smiling at me. "So?" I asked. "Any word from them?" "What?" "Any word from the rest of the family?" "Oh," she said as if she hadn't been paying attention. "Oh, yes, lots." "Lots of word?" I said with a laugh. My mom seemed so out of it even though her eyes were wide with glee. I assumed her brain was fried. Moving could be so stressful, especially on a single mother during the holidays. "Mm-hmm," she hummed, still smiling at me. "Hun, would you like a drink?" "Yeah, that sounds great. Hot cup of coffee if you have any brewing." Without another word, my mom turned and walked into the dark kitchen. I thought about taking my coat off, but honestly, the inside of the house felt as chilly as the outside, and as the late afternoon sun began to hang lower in the sky, the fact that she had no lights on in the house was beginning to become more noticeable. I went to flip a switch in the living room, but nothing happened. "Geez, Mom, it's cold as all get out in here," I hollered. "Did you not get the power turned on yet?" "Not yet," I heard her reply. Well, hopefully we can call and get that sorted out tonight. Maybe Brian can help? I know he used to work for the power company. Yes, she said. The rest will be here soon. I sat down on an old couch and a small cloud of dust puffed up. Then I looked up at the ceiling and noticed a few too many cobwebs for my liking. She hadn't even had a chance to clean this new place yet. I felt so bad for her, and I felt even worse that I was away at school and couldn't help her with these basic things. Hey, Mom. Mm-hmm, I heard her say from the kitchen. How about before I leave after Christmas, I help you get this place good and clean? It's the least I could do before I leave. Oh, that would be nice, honey. By the way, I noticed that Grandpa's coffee table isn't here yet, I said, looking around the room. No, not yet, she said. Soon she came back into the living room, sitting down on the other couch next to mine. I looked around the dark living room again. Actually, it looks like you haven't moved hardly anything in yet. Weren't the movers able to come? Well, not quite yet, honey, she said, smiling. Well, where did these old couches come from? Did they come with the house? Mm-hmm. Well, where's the rest of your stuff at? There was a pause for a moment, as if she was figuring out the question. She seemed so off, but was trying her hardest to mask it with that cheery smile. I thought about whether or not it would be too prying to ask her what was wrong. You don't need to worry about that, honey, she said finally. I'm just glad you're here. We sat for about an hour. I started to catch her up on my life, then realized I had been dominating the conversation while she just looked at me and smiled. I felt bad when I dominated conversations like that, but my mom was so mild and nice that she never interjected, so I moved the conversation to her, trying to make small talk. Oddly enough, she didn't seem to be too interested in talking, but she kept that jolly grin on her face while I pried. It seemed to me like something had happened, and she wasn't interested in talking about it. Finally, I worked up the courage. Hey, Mom, what's wrong? Wrong? She asked. Yeah, wrong, I said. I can tell that something's off. Did something happen with the movers? Are you in financial trouble or something? Another pause. Oh, no, honey, she said cheerfully. Nothing's wrong. I'm just glad you're here. Yeah, I know, I said, now frustrated. I noticed that it was almost evening now, and that the inside of the house was growing quite dark. I wondered what was keeping Brian. I actually thought, given his supreme punctuality, that he might have beaten me to Mom's. But now I had been there for nearly an hour and a half, and he still was nowhere to be seen. Man, I wonder what's keeping Brian. Oh, I wouldn't worry about that, Mom said. The rest will be here soon. I shot my mom a confused look. It was almost like she was running on autopilot, saying certain phrases several times and passing in and out of the conversation. It's getting awful dark in here, Mom, I said, noticing that as I spoke, I could now see my breath. Don't you have any candles? Another awkward pause. Oh, I could go look, she replied. Oh, honey, I'm sorry. Can I get you something to drink? It dawned on me all of a sudden that she had never brought me the first drink. I suppose I was too distracted by the filth of the house and the worry I had felt for what Mom might have been going through. How can you make coffee if you don't have any power? I asked. Mom's cheery smile grew a little wider, like she was stifling an uncomfortable laugh. I'll get you something else then, she said, turning back toward the kitchen door, which was now shrouded in darkness. I glanced at the living room window to see the deep orange sun hanging just over the horizon. Still no sign of Brian or Amy. Do you want me to go to the store and buy some candles at least until Brian gets here to call the power company? Oh no, Mom said from the kitchen. Just stay. The rest will be here soon. I was beginning to feel uneasy now, like something was very wrong. She had been behaving so strangely all night, and now she was in the pitch-dark kitchen, supposedly getting a drink for us with no source of light. My mom was not that old, only in her early 50s, but I remembered that my grandma had dementia, something terrible, a long time ago, and my mom's behavior was really starting to make me think. Just then, the ceiling lit up totally red. Then it flashed with blue. It was all the more noticeable since the house was so dark, but I knew instantly what those lights meant. I got off the couch and ran to the window on the front door. There was a patrol car and 2 officers getting out. One was older and a little overweight. The other was younger and lean, probably a trainee or something. The lights on the car were flashing, and the first thing they did was walk up to my car on the curb and take their flashlights out to look inside. "Hey, Mom," I called without taking my eyes off the officers. "Is it illegal to park on the curb in this neighborhood?" I was so engrossed in what the police were doing around my car that I almost didn't notice that there was no reply from the kitchen. After a couple seconds, the younger cop turned his head up toward the house, and he must have noticed my face in the window at the front door because he pointed up and said something to the older officer. They began walking up the sidewalk toward the house. "Hey, Mom, what are the cops doing here?" Again, there was no reply. Confused, I turned around. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust in the darkness, but when they finally started to, I noticed the silhouette of my mother standing silent in the kitchen door. I could not make out her expression in the darkness. All she did was stand there, with her hands at her sides. I squinted my eyes to make her out in the dark when a knock at the door startled me. "Mom?" I asked, turning back. Again, I saw that she was just standing there, still as a tree. Another knock, harder this time. I cracked the door open. "Evening, ma'am," the older officer said. I could smell the coffee on his breath as he spoke. "Yes," I replied. "Is that your vehicle out there?" "It is." "Is it illegal to park on the curb?" Well, no," he said with a chuckle. Would you mind showing me your ID, please, if you have it available?" "Can I ask what the problem is?" "Well, sure you can," he said. "We received a call about a possible missing person. We don't normally do much about those unless the person's been gone for 24 hours, but me and Officer Nick here," the young officer held his hand up at me in a semi-wave, "we're doing our patrol through here and noticed that your car matches the description of the missing person's car. Then we noticed it parked outside this house, and so given those two facts, we thought it was a good idea to—" "What's wrong with it being parked outside this house?" I interrupted. "Well, ma'am, this house was declared unfit for habitation about 10 years ago. Heck, it's been vacant for dang near 20. With those words, my stomach felt like it weighed about 30 pounds. The blood drained from my face, and I felt numb. I turned back to my mom, but she was gone from the doorway. With my back still toward the officers, I asked, "Who called on the missing person?" "Well, if you are in fact the person we're looking for, then your mother did." Without hesitating, I flung the door open and fell to the front stoop outside. I could barely stand. My legs refused to work. The younger officer helped me to my feet and held me as I hyperventilated into his shoulder. They asked me a plethora of questions like, "What happened?" or "Did somebody force you to come here?" But all I could say in between sniffling was, "I just wanted to come home for Christmas."